welcome, and today we will talk about psychology. And one of the wonderful books that we have is simple. DK is a well-known publisher, as we all know, and he published a lot more books, other quality books that give a huge visual expressions also, and it explained and well defined. Now here in this video we will talk about the content, and later on we will move on. Like we have around 500 pages of this book. On an average, the book have how much pages? Maybe 500, but we have to focus on the content. So the content it have. The page number is not mentioned as it is. Yeah, it's mentioned. I think 154, around 200, 150 pages is there. So what are the topics that we need to study? That's also very important. I mean, what are the things that we need to learn about? And yeah, this book is fully copyrighted by the DK. I am just here sharing my work. Like, if you want, you can get it from and purchase it. Right, I'm not holding any of the copyrights of this book, so that's very important. Now we'll start our book, The Simple Philosophy. This is why I start these books, because I want pretty much fascinating about the philosophy. So I thought, let's read a book. So I decided which book should I first start to read this, and this is the first American editions of 2021 by DK Publishers. Mostly it's printed by China. They print the book from China. I have the digital copy, and yeah, let's talk about the content. The introduction part. Definitely, we will introduce you and thinking about the world. Okay, so abandoning myths and single resources, unknownable origin, numbers, rule, mathematical truth. Okay, everything flow. The logos changes, impossible zones paradox, the ships of Theseus, eternal atoms, the realm of ideas, the theory of form, the shadow world. See, everything is like thinking about the world, right? So let's talk about first this thinking about the world, and it have around 100 pages. Oh my god. Okay, how many pages do you have in this chapter? 50 pages, right? So first 50 page we will talk about this thinking about the world. The world is spirit, reality is in a process, and inner drive. God is dead, truth and disciple, and dead as tool, instrument. Okay, I will also add some of my content too, like my understanding. Here basically I just focus on here to study and let you read, so that you can. If I click on that topics, I will reach into this place. That's quite interesting. If I click in this introductory part, let's see. I think I will reach into that introductory part, right? That's all. So introduce you. Let me introduce you the philosophy. What is philosophy actually? According to the given definition, let's read this philosophy. What is philosophy? Philosophy is Plato said, the master Plato. Plato said, begin in wonder. Okay, so I will begin in wonder. That's good. No, that's not. I think now it will work. Let's try this. Right. What is the people wonder about the things. Why the world, why you are. provide some answers. They try to give the right like God created this because of this, because of this. So they are answering the God, right? So God comes up, but describing natural events as the actions of God. So religion of one God or another provides some answers describing natural events as the act of God or spirit, but the early civilizations people want explanations that satisfy their capacity of original thought. It may be seems like want discussion at all. Better if you listen to it because it will give you some sort of answers. So if you are you don't need to focus constantly on that, but better to listen. I create mostly for audio purpose. Like if you listen, maybe give you some sort of sense as a radio or things. But if you in sometimes you want to watch the words like the pictures, so you are most welcome. It's a video format, but better if you listen to these words, right? So constantly it will increase your curiosity within you. Better to focus and listen more. So the foundations of the Western philosophy, which focus on reasons and observation, were laid by Greek scholars in 6th century BC. Thinkers such as Thales and Democritus studied the physical world, its structure, and what it is made of. Right? Mostly how the world look like and what are the ingredients and elements it has. So and their theories paved the way for the development of physical sciences. Many centuries later, at roughly the same time, thinkers in India and China pondered similar questions from different culture and religions perspective. As their societies become more sophisticated, the early philosophers uh, in both the East and West turned their attention to the human world. They asked questions about the nature of suffering, how we should live our life, and how it is that we can understand the world at all. Throughout history, there have been many differences, different schools of philosophical thought, and their ideas have often directly oppose each other. Definitely, someone always in the favor, someone is against. So it's a debate, right? Philosophy, it's a someone you can say something against, but truth have no need to debate with truth. So until it's established. But philosophy is about asking questions, examining ideas, and thinking part in debate and rational argument rather than providing definitive answers. So philosophy is not to give you the exact answers, but philosophy let you uh, get into the debate and argument and uh, many more ideas, right? Examining the world. So, in all about an active process of considering the fundamental questions about the universes and our place in it. It is not just the domain of academic philosophy. It is an activity talk that we take part in, and we already do when we look at the universe we live in and wonder. So this is the introductory part. We introduce you philosophy by giving you the definition. There still remains something. So philosophy begin. How the philosophy begin? The word thinking. Let's move into that. The word thinking about the what. So philosophy began as an attempt to understand the world without relying on religions or hypostasis mostly. It was centered around two general questions. What is the nature of reality? The subject of matter, and what is the nature of knowledge? The subject of epistemology. Those are the different important concepts here. So for me? Shift R, right? Shift R. Shift E is white. Okay. So as I was talking about, it was a century around the two general questions. What is the nature? I mean, what is the nature of reality and the subject of metaphysics, and what's the nature of knowledge? Nature of knowledge, the subject of epistemology. Answer to those questions fell into two main school of thought: rationalism, and which treat reasoning as the most reliable source of knowledge, and empiricism, which stressed the importance of sensory experiences. Earlier philosophers were the scientists of their day. The physical science only become distinct from philosophy in 17th century. Now let me talk something more about myth, right? So there are lots of myths. Whatever we don't understand, we don't have the proof, we bullshit on it, and that's become the myth. Now, what is myth? Before the Milesians, the Greek believed that natural events such as storms were caused by the god. Actually, storm definitely it's caused by the god, but actually, what storm is not being answered, or what the thunderstorm actually it's electricity, right? Everything happen, is being created by god, but definitely it's not the cause of god, because god created it, and everything is our in a system, right? Everything is happening in a system. Like god created the leaf, definitely he created it, we call it as a nature create itself. And how he producing food in his leaf, that's the science. And right, so nature, the Milesian argue that myths about god were often irrational and were not need to explain natural events. But no, that's not true. We need to explain the natural event, because how it's working, it's very important to know. It's god created, definitely everything are, even though we are all created by god. So abandoning myth, the first western philosopher lived in Greek city and state of Miletus in the 6th century BC. The Milesian school, as it was called, questions the belief that God exists, claiming instead that there was a natural order to the world. Relying on reasons and observations alone, the Milesians set out to find the arc underlying principles of the cosmos. Their studies paved the way for further scientific and philosophical thought. So, Thales of Miletus. Intellect is the swiftest of things, for it runs through everything. Okay, what you understand? Let me comment in section. Comment. Now, this is about abandoning the myth. Let's see this earth. What is the first principle? The health of Milton. Earth. In Thales' work, the Earth is described as a disk floating on water. Okay, just like this. Air is, according to the Thales. Local river was in. water nor the air, but it's the molecule, it's the atom, single source. Everything have atom, and but different electrons are revolving around them, and different molecules. Nowadays we know, also we give them the name too. It's our periodic table, we know them. Now let's talk about this, the an unknowable origin. So as we see, this is earth and moon and sun, and the stars so close, then moon. How this possible? Okay, let's see this primordial germ. A germ within the Empyrean become the cosmos. Empyrean the Empyrean lie beyond the visible world. An unknown variable origin. Anaximandra questions who water or air could be primary substance. He claimed the in the beginning posing focus such as and when emerged from the earth, creating the earth more boring for me right now. Impossible task. To jump any distance, a person has to jump half of the distance, and so no forever. Change is impossible. Zone of Ila saying that change see opposite is impossible, and that any changes that we will see are illusion. For example, in an argument known as a paradox, which show that something unlikely must be true, he showed that for someone to move any distance, they have to travel half of the distance first. However, in order to do that, they would first have to travel half of the distance, and so on indefinitely, because a distance can always be half. Any movement require traveling an infinite number of half distance, which is impossible. From this, Zone was able to conclude that movement is an illusion. Okay, so Zone paradox. Now, I think I need more that, but let's move on to the next one. Is the ships of the Theras. Original ships, to begin with the ships, it is perfect conditions and parts replaced. As the years pass, damaged parts of the ships are replaced. Definitely, if something get damaged, we need to replace to run the ships. The ships of the Theseus. The ships of the Theseus. I'm wrong. The thought experiment from ancient Greece concerned the nature of identity. If the components part of an object are replaced over time, does it remain the same object? To illustrate the problem, the Greek used the examples of the legendary ships of Theseus, which was completely restored over the course of a century. Additional repair, more and more parts of the ships are restored. Restore ships. Finally, every part has been replaced, but it is the same ships. It's not been replaced anyway. That's something understandable. Eternal atoms. Let's talk about this. Now, Leucippus and Democritus argue that matter could not be divided infinitely and so had to be composed of invisible building block which they called atoms. They thought that atoms must exist in a void which enable them to move around and combine with other atoms to form different substances. They also believe that atoms are eternal and unchanged. When an object disintegrates, its atoms survive and recombine to form a new substance. This means that the atoms that make up the human body are not destroyed after death, but the dispersed to become something else. Now, round atoms. According to Democritus, atoms come into various shapes. Each of has different property. For example, atoms of liquid are round and smoothie and move past each other easily. Move past the void. Okay, the realm of idea. Plato believes that people gain knowledge by using reasons, by using reasons rather than relying on their sense. The realm of idea. Plato believes that people gain knowledge by using reasons rather than relying on their sense alone. He noticed, for example, that we experience different kinds of dog, but not what they have in common. That is the definitive or ideal dog. We argue that the ideal dog exists, but in the perfect realm of form, a world that we cannot see but that contains the ideal form of all things. Plato claimed that reason tells us that this world must exist. This is the ideal dog, but from a dog, Plato argued that we have an innate knowledge of the ideal from a dog. So, particular dog come in many varieties, but each is divided from the ideal form of dog. So, one is dog, and we can classify dog into different categories, right? So this is the realm of ideas and a common dog, right? Or ideal dog, we can say. Now let's talk about this cat. About particular cat. A particular cat is like a shadow cast by its form. All we see is its shadow. We are unable to see a form of cat, but we can reason that it exists from the shadow it casts. A shadowed world. Okay, what is the shadow world? Plato illustrated his theory of form with an allegory. He compared human beings to prisoners in a cave who can only face in one direction, toward a wall on which shadows are moving behind them. Object pass in front of a light source to create the shadow that they see. For Plato, this is how poorly we perceive reality. All we see are shadows cast by the form. However, he claimed that he can always leave the cave, that is, perceived reality as it really is, by using reasons to understand the form, the allegory of the cave. Uh, yeah, in the next part, let's talk about the earthly forms and the rest of them in the next part. So keep watching and